Hello, welcome to my tutorial on how you would build up to a drop in Garageband. For me, there are a few essentials you will need to make a good drop and a good build-up, one of which is white noise. Now all of you will have Big Waterfall saved as one of your loops in Garageband. Simply search for Big Waterfall. Once you have found it, pull it into your main track thing. However, I prefer to use radio static, which I found on the internet somewhere, as it's more effective and ends up with a more trebly sound. So I'm going to drag that in. First thing you do when you drag either the waterfall or the static in is cut off the beginning and the end. You'll see that there are these gaps at the beginning, and if you're going to loop this over and over to make it longer, you do not want there to be gaps in it. I want my white noise sweep to last 8 bars, so starting at bar 2 I'm going to drag it, loop it over from the top right corner until it's as long as I want it to be. I can adjust that later on. Now go on to the I down here and you're going to add some effects onto it. One effect is going to be overdrive. Put the drive right down to 0.5 and the tone right down to 20 Hz. Second effect is distortion. Also put the drive down to 0.5 and also the tone down to 20. On the visual equalizer, put on a bass boost, and with the low mid and high mid, put a boost on at 100 and 200 approximately. Also put a slight treble cut. Next you'll need to automate these, so click on the little arrow there and go on to add automation here. Then you can choose what you want to automate. For this we will need overdrive tone, distortion tone, visual equalizer, bass frequency, low mid frequency, high mid frequency and treble gain. On the overdrive and distortion you will need to start at 20 Hz and end up at 20,000. So do this on them. On the bass frequency I wouldn't go so high. Start wherever you left it and end at about 10,000. On the low mid, just drag it straight up and do the same on the high mid. On the treble gain, which has started about -1 or -2.5, this time drag it up to about 2.5. That's basically your white noise sweep. So that's the basics of your white noise sweep. Next you're going to need some decent drums. I have a lovely library of drums which I've collected in my favourites tab. For this one I'm probably going to be using kick 10, which sounds like this. To add a bit of punch to it, I'm going to use some compressor. This you'll need a high ratio and a relatively low threshold. Also, I would suggest monoing your kick. Right, now what you have to do is mark out your 8 bars. 8 bars takes me to bar 10 here, so I'm going to pull my effect back slightly. Okay, so now I just have to arrange my kick in a way that builds up nicely. To anyone who's listened to dubstep, you'll know that the kick starts slow but builds up in speed until it's just firing away like a machine gun near the end. So I'm also going to do this. On my tracks I like to leave 1 bar at the end, or at least half a bar, to have some silence or something else in. So I'm going to pull back my white noise again and adjust my automations to leave this bar empty. Here's what it sounds like so far. You'll notice that the white noise is blocking out the kick near the end. So to sort this problem out, I'm going to drop the volume slightly. Another way you could sort this out is to use some ducking, which can be accessed via the Master tab. But for this I'm just going to use simple volume changing. So that's our main effects done. Next you'll need some pitch, and because we're Garageband users, we're going to use the analog mono and lots of glide. So change piano to your analog mono and go into it here. To bring up musical typing, do Shift Command K. I'd bring your hollow bright mix slightly down. Start your cut off here and we can automate it later. Now what we're going to have to do is record your notes in. Now double click on your loop here to bring this up. To get the glide effect you have to have the notes overlapping. So mine are going to overlap every two beats. Now we need to adjust our glide amount so that it moves smoothly. I feel that the glide is slightly too fast at the moment, so I'm going to make it slightly longer. The perfect amount of glide is where you can't hear where the note changes. That'll do fine. Now we're going to automate the cutoff like I said I would. Go onto the analog mono and go to the cutoff, tick the box and press OK. Now plug the beginning and at the end bring it up so it's at full. Now let's listen to the sound. It's a personal preference of mine that these extra effects don't come in immediately, as it adds too much suddenness to it. So I'm going to fade it in slightly here. So here's what it sounds like together. What I'm also going to do is add in a snare as well as the kick to change in speed. From my library I'm going to choose snare 6, which sounds like this. Now I just double it over where the kick goes. going to add in some fade in so it doesn't come in immediately with the kick. You'll notice that there's a bar left at the end, like I said there would be. We're now going to fill this bar with a few extra fills. This time I'm going to use a clap snare. It's on the 3rd beat. Also, to fill this gap, on the 4th beat I'm going to put some toms. Let's hear what this sounds like. What I'm going to do is duplicate my grand piano track, which is what the slide is from, by pressing Command D. I'm now going to Alt to drag it down into this track, but this time I'm going to push up the octave. I think this would add some depth to my sound. Because I've done this, I'm going to have to turn both tracks down to avoid it overpowering everything else. Let's try this. This would do quite nicely as a build-up to my drop. But of course, in a realistic environment, we'd be having some of the bits from our previous part of the track on over that to add to it. One thing I'd like to do finally is from the master track, and this comes in the form of a bass reduction. So go onto your little effects slot here and add on a bass reduction. Make sure that the frequency is at 0, and we'll automate this in a moment. To bring up your master track, press Command B. Then go down to the Add Automation, Bass Reduction and Frequency. It should now be at 0, or 20 Hz. Then find to the end of your drop here, and bring it up to about 1000. Whatever you do, never go past 1500 or 1700. It just cuts out most of the sound. So what I'm also going to do is, after we've had the kick, I'm going to bring it right down again so that we get the full spectrum. Let's listen to how it sounds now. This would of course sound a lot better through headphones. What it's actually going to be doing is cutting out the bass from the kick, which gives more of a shock when the bass comes back in again here. Finally, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel for more videos and tutorials.